Listen, I don't know what's happening with it. Listen, Steve, I think we're gonna get started. Okay. We have got here. Okay. Is it 15 minutes back? 2 minutes. I'm going 15 minutes. Stuff. People coming from yeah, man. Yeah, we're taking us. Yeah, let's
well, Shabazz, I'm not sure what you nonetheless the spirit that of the brothers and of the sisters that I grew up with in the nation. That, you know, nothing stops. You know, the work must be done. The nation must be built. So you still roll with that spirit. So that's what you're dealing with this morning.
You know what? I think you want something.
Oh, but that I know what it is. And it's a good thing, brother. That lesson never gave it up because that's why he did it there. And he decided I'm not going to, you know, just sleep and stay in the bed and watch TV all day. I'm working, producing, do something.
When the captain told me, what you he said, "Well, you ain't never leave. You
ain't off your toes.
You
see what I mean? See how that's right. That's what we're working with today. So that's the good spirit, actually. But I know it's you're a man of spiritual and practical conviction as well. So
I think you got something. All right, we're gonna get started, and I'm sure a couple more will come in. As we come to the conclusion of African American History Month, we have two very distinguished speakers to talk to us about Islam and how that has impacted the African American community, really America in general. And they're here today to give us some insight into Islam as they have experienced it, which is going to connect obviously to our course, Facts and Jews. First, speaking that, or you or Ameer first?
oh, brother, please.
Okay.
Okay.
Lester Muhammad, who is a community historian. What that means is that he understands history and has collected history, but he doesn't have formal training as a historian. Those which is better many times because he's speaking from his lived experience, and he's also speaking as someone who is curating the experiences that he has accumulated, and someone who has been involved in the experiences he's going to relate. So that's the benefit of being a community historian. He or she is relating to you not only something that they studied, something that they have lived in or living. So that's going to be our first speaker. And after that, we are honored all the way from Chicago area to have Mr. Ameer Muhammad, was the grandson of Elijah Muhammad, who was the founder of the nation, not the founder, leader of the nation Islam. Mr. Muhammad is going to talk about his lived experience, not only as a member of the Nation of Islam, but as a member of the family of the leader of the Nation of Islam, a historian and a historical figure for our last class in African American History Month 2024, 2025. 2025. And I forgot to mention, Lester's a good friend and associate of mine, someone who has been involved really all over the country with Islam. So we're honored to have him. And of course, we're honored to have Mr. Muhammad, who took time to come all the way from Chicago. Sir, we appreciate your time and your travel. Bless Muhammad, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, all people to you. My name is Lester Muhammad. I grew up here in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Those of you that are familiar with the city in the Northeast Inlet, on Vermont Avenue, which is probably where the Uptown complex is located at right now. This right? And during that time of growing up here in the city of Atlantic City, we had a strong Muslim community.
Let's just let me.
Okay.
I forgot to mention, we have gentleman from New Freedom Works is filming this so other people in this month can realize the history that I forgot to mention that from New Freedom.
Okay.
Excuse me.
So I grew up in Atlantic City, familiar with the city. In fact, this building here on the ground on which this building sits on now, this used to be the former Atlantic City High School that I graduated from in the 70s. But what we want to talk about today is really the history of the Islamic movement. And I'm going to talk mainly about the local area. And we have Brother Ameer here, who's in Chicago, the grandson. So he's going to share a whole lot of history about the national overview. In 1952, I think in August of 1952, Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz was released from prison. And he met Minister Woodrow Love, who was a minister in Muhammad's Temple number 10 in Chicago for the Savior's Day Convention that year. Every year with that annual convention. It was 52, he got out in August, so it had to be 53.
You said number 10, Chicago's number 2.
Two, yeah. And he met him in 53 at the Savior's Day Convention. And this is a part of the history of Atlantic City that a lot of people don't know. Minister Woodrow Love at that met him at that time. And at that time, Minister Malcolm asked Minister Woodrow Love that asked him if he could work with him. He wanted to work with him. And in fact, it'd probably be better. Do you have that clip? Yeah, let's play the clip. We're going to play this clip and then we'll come back. This is very important. You got it? Yes. Okay. So at the time he told me, he said, listen, I want to work with you. And so Minister Woodrow Love told him, he said, listen, I would have to get permission from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad before I could, and he said he talked with him and he said, take him. I think he will be a good asset to the community. And this was so during that time, during the convention, and then after the convention was over, Minister Woodrow thought that Minister Malcolm was going to go back to Detroit with his brother. But as he was packing up, so Minister Malcolm came to him and said, hey, we're ready to go. And so he didn't know that he was really ready to come down to Atlantic City at that time. So part of the history, yeah.
Do that, brother. And I met Malcolm X at the convention in Chicago. And Malcolm came to me and said, brother, said, it's like all the other ministers sitting up there look so beautiful. You don't want to do anything. You don't know what. I want to work with you. And I want to stay with you. And so I said, I couldn't do that, brother, unless I got permission from the Honorable Muhammad. And I asked, and he says, take him to make sure that everything would be guided right for him. So I fear that he would require an access to the nation. And so I told Malcolm what he said. When I got through packing up, I thought Malcolm was going back to Detroit where his brother was. And so Malcolm woke up and said, let's go. He came to Atlantic City. And the first time that he was privileged to go to Philadelphia, I appointed him. So he was from Atlantic City. And then Minister passed in number 7 in New York. And then his first appointment was from the Honorable Muhammad. And he appointed him to go to New York.
Oh.
And
So
later
what
on,
years were they with? Like this was like 1950 by that beginning?
yes.
50.
And later on, when you heard Brother, we pushed
Okay. David back in the
in
40s
Atlantic City.
in Atlantic City. Because it's
And-
number 10 out of, double-digit temples for years. I was always wondering, how did Atlantic City, little old Atlantic City, get to be 10? I think Philly is 12. They got their number after we did. We're right behind Youngstown. And I always kind of wondered.
If this history is to last forever and forever and forever, those 7 years what we put in to make it number 10 is a history will last for that.
So we going
Number
to talk about the
10
pioneers
is the
from
10th
that perspective?
temple that is connected to the history of the existing of the new nation. New nation. So many police, so many government officials surrounding the place we were meeting until no member or no one on the outside couldn't get in to hear anything because they were blocked. And that went on right here in Atlantic City for 7 years, and I wasn't able to hold no meeting for 1 month. And when they found out I was meeting there, they were threatening their father, children, wives, and everyone else who attended. And the mayor called all the ministers alliance and told them to sacrifice because they didn't want Islam nowhere in New Jersey. And all the preachers and all the people who worked for the city or had any government job couldn't come to no meeting, either their family. And they made us move the 7 years when they found out that we were holding a meeting there. That threat came to their family, and they had to put us out. And that's what went on with me and the other members for around 7 years. And the only way that they slowed down and they completely stopped, a brother came out of service and his name Joseph, and he came out of service, and after he embraced Islam, he said, "Brother, I'm not going to use my privilege or education to say I'm going to buy the faith for you, for the nation."
Now, where was this place? What's the location?
419 Madison Avenue.
419 Madison?
Yeah.
Jermaine struggled for years with dental issues before finally finding Nuvia. Listen to what he wanted most after his smile makeover.
That we had in Atlantic City. And this was not only in Atlantic City, this was all over the country.
I want to be able to look her.
And Brother Ameer is gonna probably tell you some stories about Chicago and other places around the country. But this was a real serious problem, establishing this social reform program called the Nation of Islam across the nation. But we were fortunate to have people like Minister Woodrow Love, Minister Isaiah Kareem, another one of the pioneer ministers, Minister George Kamal Majid. You had Al-Haji Malik Shabazz, and they were here, and they opened up the routes or temples all up along the Eastern Seaboard and in other areas. Number 10 is Atlantic City. Number 11, Boston, is where Minister Malcolm's sister, Ella, half-sister, lived. Number 12 is Philadelphia. Number 12, Minister Woodrow Love, when he was in this area, he assigned Minister Malcolm to go help open up temple number 12. And then he got his first assignment from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I believe in 1954, when the minister in New York had passed away. And that's when he got his first assignment from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to take over, at that time, temple number 7. One of the other things, in this documentary, Minister Woodrow Love talks about how the Atlantic City Temple number 10 was the East Coast headquarters of the Nation of Islam during those early years in the 50s. And it's really a historical thing. We didn't know this history. I didn't even know this history until maybe about 10 or 15 years ago, when a sister, a historian, Dr. Ridgeland Goddard, and another sister, Sister Gwanda Abdullah, had sat down with Minister Woodrow Love prior to him transitioning, and they was able to record this, and they shared that recording with me, and was able to capture this history, which I really think would have been lost if we would have not captured it at that time. So there's a lot of history with Atlantic City, and especially with number 10. And I just want to, two things. One, go back to when Minister Woodrow Love talks about how the resistance and the pushback by only the FBI, local officials, they didn't want Islam nowhere in the state of New Jersey. And let's think about it today. In the state of New Jersey, I think if I'm correct, New Jersey has the highest number of elected Muslim officials. Is that correct, Brother Kaleem?
In the country, that's right.
In the country. New Jersey, I think, was the first state under the Governor Christine Todd Whitman that started the halal certification. Also, last year, I think, this is the second year now.
You explain what halal is.
Yeah, that's the Islamic slaughtering, dealing with the slaughtering of the animals at that time. But halal means lawful, but the way that we slaughter. The 2 years ago, I believe 2 or 3 years now, we have now what we call Islamic Heritage Month here in the state of New Jersey. But so just think about in the 50s, when we were fighting to establish this way of life here in the state of New Jersey, the resistance and the pushback. And here today in Atlantic City, New Jersey, you have a large Muslim population that's making a great contribution. You have first responders, you have politicians, you have attorneys, you have all over the place, professional people, businesses. And so we've made a major contribution just here in this city alone. Within 2 blocks or 3 blocks of here, you have 2 major Islamic centers. You have businesses all around you. And you have many students that attend this university who are part of the MSA. So we have grown by leaps and bounds. The one area, in my opinion, where we need to really strengthen is in economic development. That's the area that, from our side, coming from the Nation of Islam, that we still have not established ourselves back the way we should. That, and then also the fact that we need to step up with our educational, because here in Atlantic City, we had a University of Islam, and your professor was the director of that school at that time. We had over 40 schools located around the country that were teaching our children. So we need to get back to those two areas. I'm gonna let Brother Ameer take us through the national look and of how the community grew, and from him as a young child coming up and his mother. So that's it. And if you have any questions, we can answer any questions at the end of the presentation.
Thank you, Brother Lester.
Okay.
Brother Lester, I want you to remain close by because this is your construct. And I'm not going to stand here and say I know everything because I do not. You see, because I wasn't brought into this world until 1958. So a lot of the information that I have was given to me by my parents, by my uncle, by my grandfather, by my family, and those that are believers that contributed. So, and I'll share with you, and I'm speaking to this truth to this because if you listen to everything you hear about the Nation of Islam, one would think Malcolm X, Malcolm Shabazz, I'm sorry, let me get the name right. His name is Malcolm Shabazz, but when he went to Hajj, Al-Hajj had it behind him, as a tradition of him going through the Hajj and making that pilgrimage. And that was the completion of his 5 pillars of his faith. But it would seem on the outside that Brother Malcolm established the mosque all by himself. And Brother Lester this morning enlightened me in his talk with the presentation from his brother, is that he wasn't really connected until after 12 was established. After 10, this is 10, right?
This is 10.
He wasn't really connected with the growth of that process until 10. Am I correct or incorrect?
Well, he came out of prison in 1952, August of 1952.
Right.
He went to the first Savior's Day, in
Chicago.
in 53,
Yes.
and that's when he met Minister Mao. That's when he met Minister Woodrow.
Okay.
Right. So he had been studying Islam, well, understand, in the institution at the time.
Right.
And his brother was part of the movement at the time.
Yes, sir.
Right.
And from my understanding, and again from the word that I have, he met Young Elijah Muhammad in Detroit at Mosque Number 1. And Young Elijah Muhammad happened to assist and do things then. It's one thing Young Elijah Muhammad did. He was about building a nation and doing a community effort to bring his people up back. I don't like to even use that phrase because it's a little radical to me even standing here, but by any means necessary, but that wasn't the way. Young Elijah Muhammad spoke and did things within the law of this land. In fact, he discouraged the FOI, the junior FOI as I was under his leadership, because when he passed our 16, we couldn't carry weapons. We were told not to carry a knife or gun or anything as youth and in the FOI. That was the teaching that we had on the surface. People did other things, but anyway. They haven't given you too much truth. But anyway, with that, from what the brother is saying here, Malcolm's involvement was he wasn't alone. There was always a team effort with all of this. And I'm going to share with you something. We have 4 sisters and 2 brothers in this room. So I'm going to flip a little bit, brother, and just go back in history to the very beginning, to the role that women have played in the growth and the sustaining of this organization to this day. My grandmother, Sister Clara Muhammad, or at the time, Clara Evans Poole, was at the time. You have to go back into the earlier part of the previous century. Between the 1920 and 1930s, the African American people were searching. They were searching for something other than the Black church or the church structure. And there were outlets such as the Moors, such as Noble Jewelry. That's why I'm relying on my brother to keep me on the right path here. There was also the Masons. And so as a student of these things, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad being the son of a Baptist preacher and being in the church, he had a yearning for something else. He wanted to do something bigger and better for his people. And his wife knew this. And so my grandfather was searching. His wife knew he was searching. I'm going to abbreviate this because this class is done at what time, sir?
11:05.
Oh, we got until, okay, that's right, my watch. I'm sorry, I'm on Central Time, so we got about 20 minutes. So I'm not going to take up all that time, but I'm going to share with you some key things. During that early time, there was a lot of folk searching and looking for another way. They were looking for unity. And you got to remember during that time, there was the Tulsa. That had already happened in 1919, 1920. And if anybody doesn't know, Tulsa was a town where people that look like us, look like Black folk, built a town that was thriving and on its own. Because you got to remember something, back in those days, folks that didn't look like us didn't even want to touch the money that we touched, didn't want to be in the same space we were in. There was segregation. You had to use this washroom or that place. You couldn't eat in this place or that place. That was going on heavily back then. So these people got together and built a town. And what happened when that town became successful? Anybody here know? Yes, ma'am.
They burned it down?
They burned it down, but then something else happened when, of course, the people there, they came and tried to do a ground situation. They tried to overcome these people on the ground with guns and fighting. But what happened to actually destroy Tulsa? Well, I'm gonna make it short. They sent in aeroplanes and bombed the town completely out. And where do you have airplanes in 1920? Our government had airplanes. Those bombs came from our government. That government did not want to see folks with oil, with independence, with autonomy, having their own money, having their own hotels, businesses, and thriving, so they destroyed it. So again, that was the hunger for the African American people back then. So my grandmother, knowing that hunger was in the gut of her and her husband, she came across many people, but she came across a gentleman named Farad Muhammad, or W.D. Farad. He had many names. And he was teaching a teaching that she felt that could connect with her desires of her heart and that of her husband. And she invited her husband back. She said, "Husband, you have to hear that." She referred to my grandfather as husband most of the time. She said, either when she's talking to someone as my husband, when she's spoken, she says husband. She didn't call him Elijah, didn't call him honey or any of that in front of him. He was always husband. She said, "Husband, you should go and hear this man speak." Long story short, he went to hear the man speak. And you gotta understand, my grandmother invited him to that. Also, just to give you another role. In the early 30s, I believe, Brother Lester, was in 1934, after Farad Muhammad left, the schools were established. And there was homeschooling going on. And there was homeschooling going on in my grandmother's own home and in other believers' own homes, but the government didn't like that. And they were arresting folks, and they were trying to take children away from people. Where there's a famous line that my grandmother stated, "I will be dead as a doorknob before you come and take these children or arrest me," basically. That was what was said. And so therein, with that spirit, began the schools of 40s, I think it was 47 schools that were established in 1975 up to that point, nationwide. My grandmother, Sister Clara Muhammad, which the schools were named after her, her son named the schools after her, after her passing, her grandfather's passing, Sister Clara Muhammad Schools. Also, the role of the sisters. Just to let you know also, the brothers in the mosque or in the temple at the time did not go to World War II to fight. And many of the brothers were over age. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, when they picked him up off the streets, you may see a famous picture of him in handcuffs, where he's holding his coat here and his handcuffed on his right arm next to an FBI agent, taking him in. In that picture was taken, brother, in, was that 1941?
I'm not sure what happened.
It's 1941, as I remember, or 42, no, 42, because it was 5 years and they were in prison. Right. 1942, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was born in 1897, right? Come on, somebody help me out here, bro. 1897 or 98?
So he's over 50 years old, huh?
He was over the age of, I think he was at that time, he was 42 or 43 or 44 years old. And he was ineligible to be drafted. But they took every male of age, anybody that was 18 or older, and imprisoned them at that time. My father was among those. Wali Muhammad was among those that went to prison with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, along with his son, Emmanuel Muhammad, along with many other believing brothers. It was, as I was told by my uncle Elijah II, it was about 94 brothers. He remembered the number 94 nationwide that went to prison during that time. When the brothers were away at prison, it was the sisters with my grandmother leading them that supported and maintained the structure of the Nation of Islam while the brothers were away for those years between 42 and 47 when they were all released from prison. During that time, my grandmother and the sisters together, because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad went to prison, he wanted to make lemonade out of lemons. And he wanted to bring a Holy Quran into the prison system. And the warden said, you can use the Bible all you want, but you're not bringing that book in here. So I'm sharing with you another story of how the Honorable Elijah Muhammad established, what is it called, Brother Lester, the in-prison teachings. What is it called?
Chaplaincy.
Pardon?
Chaplaincy.
Chaplaincy, thank you, sir. I'm trying to use the proper words here. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad began Muslim chaplaincy in his time in prison, because what happened was, he asked his wife, he says, sister, I need the Quran in prison. And they developed a team, Sister Clara developed this team of sisters to help her handwrite the pages of the Quran. And every visit, she would bring him some more pages. Now, the Quran has 114 chapters and so many pages, so you can imagine a group of sisters handwriting all of this. And Sister, for lack of a better word, Sister Clara smuggling the pages into her husband so that there would be a Quran to use in prison. My grandfather used that while he was in prison to teach the inmates there with him, to the point where the warden of the prison says, Mr. Muhammad, you got these prisoners under control. He says, whatever you're doing, keep up to, keep doing, because the fellas that you got that listen to you, we don't have no problem with it. So there began the chaplaincy in the prison. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad started that, and it still exists today nationally. And those individuals that adhere to that, it's still the same thing that Malcolm Shabazz benefited from, or Malcolm Little benefited from, and became Malcolm Shabazz, al-Hajj. Those teachings and that cleanup process is what made people like Brother Lester, his spirit. There were thousands of brothers and sisters with that same spirit, that building the nation spirit. And just to let you know, the sisters played a major role in that. The sisters played a role in delivering that Quran into the system. The sisters played a role in something that you all know about today. What is the one thing that you see nationwide? Some of you may enjoy, some of you may not. It's a pastry. It's a pie. It's called what? Somebody say, come on now, y'all gotta know this one. Bean pie. Bean pie was developed by those sisters. It was a recipe. I mean, here's, you know how it came about, the necessities of mother of invention? Who would have thought about navy bean pie? But you have these folks with limited resources, came up with this idea, said, ooh, we're gonna take these beans and we're making bean soup with it. Let's see if we can make a pie out of it. They developed that bean soup into a custard, flavored it, and it's a delicious dessert of many variations today, but it's enjoyed nationally in this country, okay? And now I'm going to ask Brother Lester to do this because he's speaking of going from here to there to there. Ask me some questions, brother, and so that I can bring this into what you're trying to do here.
Okay. let's talk about, okay, so today is the 50th anniversary of the 1975 Savior's Day address.
Yes, sir.
And so we're celebrating that today, and I think yesterday, you know, the transitioning of your grandfather. And tell us about that day and around that particular time in 1975. Those last days and the beginning of the transitioning from the social reform movement called the Nation of Islam to the best practices of Islam, or the world community of Islam in the West.
Yes, sir. Well,
Okay.
I will share with you from a 16-year-old boy's eyes at that time. I'm gonna give it to you from that point. My grandfather left this life. My grandmother had made her transition in 1972, a little over 2.5 years previous. So that was a day when you can say the world was full from under us. We didn't know what we were going to do without without my granddad. He was my grandfather, let me tell you that. He knew me, I knew him. I remember sitting on his lap riding on the airplane going to Phoenix. So that's how our relationship with my grandfather. I worked at his store. When he called the store, he said, "Is this Ameer?" So I had a close relationship with my grandfather, and I have beautiful memories of that. So that day, of course, we were all devastated. But because Savior's Day was the next day, nobody had time to grieve or sleep or do anything. I don't even remember sleeping from the time I got that news on the 25th. And he passed away sometime late morning or in the morning hours, between like maybe 6 and noon. I don't know the exact time, but the word didn't get out to the afternoon. When that word got out in the afternoon, it seemed like the whole situation just changed. And we were basically staying engaged, getting ready to go to Savior's Day the next day. Had planned for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to speak. Things had to pivot very quickly. And in that same time period, his son, my uncle, the Honorable Kaleem Muhammad, was already teaching and in place. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad had already assigned him as chief minister. And he was traveling around the country during 1974 and up until 1975. He was teaching. He had been, throughout the country teaching already. In fact, to share a little bit of an intimate story, we used to, as youngsters, there was, and this might get a little bit in a situation where I'm going to speak my heart, this is where I'll put on. When I was 14, I had an issue with a man being God. Because I'm like, how can a man create planets? This same person eats and sleeps and does the things that I do. And here's this guy in a picture holding a Quran with straight, shiny hair and fair skin. I said, this dude didn't create, because it didn't create the universe and the sun and the rain. I said, couldn't do that. And I had trouble with that when I was 14. All right. So, and here's the thing. I was riding on a bike. Me and my friends, we were riding, on our bikes. We had our little Stingray bikes with the 60 bars and the handlebars, and we had our little fancy bikes we ride together. And we had taken a nice long hike, and we stopped to rest. And we're just laying in the grass looking up, and he said, "Man, ain't God wonderful? Look at those clouds." And I'm saying to myself, "Yeah, for real, Muhammad can't do that." I'm like, what the heck? So let me give you the bottom line. My uncle Worth Dean was teaching in the mosque every Wednesday and Friday night during that time before the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's transition in 75. So it was in 74 where I went to the mosque on a Wednesday night. And Imam Muhammad was delineating between creation and creator. Mm-hmm. And he said, God is the creator of everything you see, all systems of knowledge and everything that you can think of, and the universe is steadily growing. We are his creation. And it was in that moment I said, ding, that's it. Prophet Muhammad is not God, he is creation just like me, and God is God, and that's the creator of all things. I knew that in 1974 when I was 15 years old, 15 going on 16 in 74. But the year before that, I'm like, I'm praying to a guy. So anyway, I went through that, came to that. So on that day in 1975, it was a whirlwind of change going on. I don't think any of us slept. I know I didn't. I went to my room and I didn't sleep, and I just in grief. And I had to get ready, get my FOI suit ready, get my shoes shined and such, and get ready to go. Because that's what you did. You came to the Savior's Day meeting, you came dressed. You know, and I had on my FOI suit, my shoes were shining, we were there. It was a tough day because that day, for everyone, oh, and I want to mention this. People, some say Imam Muhammad assumed leadership. No, Imam Muhammad desired what was called Shura Bainahum, or collective, what is it, brother?
Consultation.
Collective consultation. He was voted in. He insisted upon being voted in. He wasn't going to have that, oh, I've been anointed as a child, and da da da. I said, no. Y'all have to vote me in, because I'm not just going to do this. Because really, the truth about it, I don't believe Imam Muhammad wanted to be nobody's leader.
Right.
He loved doing what he did. He loved running his bookstore. He loved going to work as a welder. He loved being a family man. He wasn't wanting to be nobody's leader. He just wanted to be Wallace Muhammad, regular guy, and let me love his life and read my books and sell my books and go to work and weld. And all of a sudden, he's thrust into leadership on his father's passing. So on that day, Savior's Day 1975, anybody want to do this on YouTube in its entirety. And there's also a video that was produced for that called The History of the Nation of Islam. And it's a very good video. You really ought to check that out. It is also on YouTube. And proudly it's narrated by my brother and a good friend and family friend, and also one of the laborers at the time, John Ali, who actually lives in Philadelphia, about 62 miles from here in Philly. They narrated that and created that, and it will give you some very, very good historical facts, because my brother interviews the believers at the time. They talk about the times where the police came upon them and arrested them for having the children in school, and they went down to 11th Street in Chicago, and the police started shooting because one of the brothers got angry with the way the police were treating one of the sisters, and you look in the film, and it's a funny thing because we called the white man the devil back then. I laugh about it now. When the sister said, my brother asked, well, sister, who did the shooting? And you know what she said? She said, the devil. And you got it related, but it was a funny thing to see that. But so I'm encouraged you check out YouTube for Savior's Day. Check out YouTube for the Nation of Islam history. There's several of them, but there's one that begins and you'll hear a narrated voice and starts with some pictures from the past. You'll know the difference. And one is like an hour, I think an hour and a half. But anyway, Brother Lester, is anything else you want me to touch on here, please?
Well, let me ask you a quick question, brother.
Yes, sir.
Because we're dealing with students. We want to
yes, sir,
make sure everything is clear.
Yes, sir.
They are not Muslims today who are associated with Islam correctly presented, that number one, believe the white man is the devil, or believe number two, that a man is God. Would you say that?
I would say that a majority of believing Muslims evolve. And there are a group of believers that did not fully evolve, but are evolving. But overall, we accept that there is one true creator of the heavens and earth. God alone created this thing, and there's no one or no entity worthy of worship except the Lord alone, period. And that is our creed as a Muslim, along with our 5 pillars of faith. Did I answer that for you, sir?
Yeah, I just want the students to be clear, because since this is African American History Month, and you and Brother Lester are presenting on Islam and the impact of Islam, I know sometimes people get messages, and I just want to make sure that they have the correct message of how Islam is presented, what Islam entails today.
Well, Islam entails, for those that are believers, belief in one God, prayer, charity or zakat, fasting, and pilgrimage. Those are the 5 pillars of faith in Islam. And if you exercise those 5 pillars, that's a part of your belief. And like I said, the majority of believers that are Muslims, that are African American Muslims, believe in those 5 pillars of faith and believe in this oneness, which is there is no God but God, and Muhammad is a servant, or in Arabic, La ilaha illallah Muhammadun Rasulullah. That is how believing Muslims believe. Please, any other question? Does anybody here have a question? All you young faces, you're writing notes. I see a couple people writing notes. That's a good thing. Any question at all of me?
This is alert class, brother Ameer.
Sir?
This is a very alert class.
Okay.
They are taking it all in.
Well, take it all in and just know this. I'm a young guy that was born in 1958, September 1958. And I'll share this with you. My mother used to travel with Brother Malcolm. I wanted to get to this part before I said that.
Right.
Minister Malcolm, in other words, when the brother shared with you is the truth. Didn't anybody, one person, do any one thing by themselves, okay? It was always a team effort. Even the establishment of mosque was a team effort. So when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad assigned Malcolm to assist in the process of establishing the mosque, okay? He sent my mother along with Brother Malcolm to establish those mosques. Why? And Brother John Ali told me this. He said, well, brother, Malcolm didn't establish those mosques by himself. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad sent your mother in order to introduce Malcolm, because who knew Malcolm? But everybody knew Sister Lottie. So that my mother was on the road for 4.5 years, and she got off the road by having me. So when she was expecting, well, of course, you know, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, well, you can't travel when you're expecting. So yeah, that sign was pretty much done for you. And so that's when I was born in September '58. Mom got off the road. And so, but anything else, Brother Les?
Well, you know, when we talk about the history, we look at basically, because here's the thing that I try to share with people, is that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad made it clear that I'm not here to teach you religion. I'm here to clean you up.
Yes, sir.
The one who comes after me will teach you your religion. And that was his son. So as the community transitioned on February 26, 1975, 50 years ago, that's when this community really started to move forward in terms of getting the better understanding. Although we had already started a lot of it, learning the Arabic, learning how to pray. All of these things were going on.
I learned how to pray when I was a youngster in school.
Right.
And as a youngster, I'm speaking of in the early 60s. We were taught how to pray. We were taught, I used to know how to speak Arabic. I used to know how to count Arabic. I think I got Aleph. No, that's Aleph baptized down around 5. But that's alphabet. Right. Then the numbers are, I forget. Go ahead.
But the other thing is, and I wanted you to just touch on, because you're a graduate from the University of Islam school system. Talk to us about your experiences in the school system. How many hours a day were you in school? And like I said, you was also running and operating some of the businesses. I remember.
Well, I had a job after school, that's what I had.
Yeah, that was it. So Brother Giles told me at the bakery, he said, listen, we had to get the junior FOI out of the bakery at 9:30. So wherever we had businesses at and the junior FOI was working, they had to, but just tell us about how many hours a day did you spend in school?
We got there at 8 and we were done by 11:30 because the sisters came in from noon to 3.
Okay.
So we basically spent about 3 hours a day in school. But here's the thing, we went to school all year except I believe 2 weeks in the summer and 2 weeks in December. We did not take a summer break, you know, and here's the other thing, having to wear suit and tie every day going to school, we would get flat. You must be one of them black moves. If I took public transportation, I said, yeah, I'm a black boy. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, what you gonna do about it? You know, leave me, I'm going to school. What's up? Leave me alone. But yeah, during those times, to me, going to school was a beautiful experience. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad made certain that there were qualified, quality instructors in that school. I learned to love math. I learned to love biology. I learned drafting. And I learned drafting well enough where I was going to be accepted to go to another level with that. But of course, things changed in '75. That individual left the organization and I didn't, I had dreams of, being a draftsman. But those are the type of programs that we had in school when I was a youngster. It was a beautiful experience. I would never change it for nothing. And in fact, it got me into a college when that college was accredited. My education at that school was accredited to get into a college. I could have gotten in Northwestern, but didn't want to go. I could have gotten University of Illinois. I didn't like the class size because I felt like one P in a classroom of 300 people. And so I settled on a little private college called Aerospace Institute, which was I was referred to by my cousin Sultan, who was the youngest pilot at that time. He went to that school, but they had a business curriculum. And so I went there and I learned there. And then from that school, I could have gone on to get my master's, but again, I got married when I was 18, and now the family structure having to work, I couldn't go to school no more. But anyway, anything else, Brother Lester?
That's about it.
Thank you all. I hope that I've shared something that you find valuable and useful. I'm just a regular guy. I mean, you guys want my number, you can call me. And what I do for a living, I actually show seniors how their Medicare options work. So that's what I do to make money. And I enjoy doing that because Medicare is confusing. So I show them what to do. And if you guys want my card, you're welcome to call me and ask me questions. If that's okay, brother.
It's okay, no problem.
Yes, sir. All right. Thank you.
I just want to mention that we have these three pull-ups here before you take a look at those before you leave today. And it goes over some of the history of the community. You have two dealing specifically with Atlantic City. And I don't know if anybody's here from Atlantic City, but you'll see Atlantic City and I think Atlantic City up front here. And we just, here in Atlantic City, the one of the streets where the temple was located at Madison and 419 Madison Avenue has been renamed after Imam Muhammad, who took over the movement in 1975 and transitioned the community from a social reform movement to the best practices of Islam. So, if you have any questions, we're here. I can answer any questions about Ameer is here. Kaleem is here. Kaleem is actually was one of the officials in Temple Number 10. I don't know if you guys knew that. He was like my boss. Okay. He still is. He still orders me around, kicks me to the curb every now and then. But but anything. He was the director of the school. He was one of the top officials in the temple. Muhammad's Temple Number 10 during those early years in the 70s when I met him. All right, thank you for coming out. I enjoyed this talking and interacting. I learned a lot. Ameer, you told me I learned a lot from you. Yeah, I learned a lot.
But thank you.
And how you felt. So you was also there with your uncle and with Hassan. That really after a certain point, something ain't right here.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, something ain't quite right here.
Yes, sir.
How did that conversation, do you ever have that conversation with your mother?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Mommy would say, well, we always knew that Wallace was supposed to help her.
Okay.
It's simple as that. And Daddy always said, after me, there's going to be a new book and a new religion.
Mm-hmm.
He was prepping us from day one. I mean, that's all I heard. I knew. I kind of knew my uncle was going to be leader if Grandpa, ever left here.
Mm-hmm.
And so Grandpa made a transition. Uncle became the leader, just as my mother said. But Grandpa had prepared us. This was his plan.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted that to be. And unofficially, man was groomed in that way. And again, he didn't particularly care about it because he mentions in one of the interviews again on YouTube, folks. We want to know something about this community. There is no, what is that called? There was no copyrights put on anything of Young Elijah Muhammad. There was little copyright put on what Man Muhammad did. Mm-hmm. So everything is on YouTube. It's you can see it. And in one of those things, Imam said that, oh my goodness, my thoughts cease. It happened when you turn 66. Mm-hmm. I lost my train of thought, brother. Where was I?
Just some of what the Imam said.
One more step back and I'll catch it. With regard to
the transition and the preparation that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad made.
He had said that his sister Lottie would see him outside playing with the other guys and doing things, and she would say to him, "Come over here. You're not supposed to be playing with those other guys like that. You're supposed to be, you're being prepared for something else." And he even mentions that on YouTube. That's what I wanted to share. And so my mother was always kind of, tugging on her little brother's coat. Look, you being prepared for something else.
She's been protective of it.
Yes, very much so. And she was that way up until, her brother preceded her until he passed. He was supporting her, we supported it, he supported her, we supported the man, and that's just the way it was.
Very interesting. We've had a peek in history, y'all. There's a literature here, you're free to take if you want. Is that correct?
Yeah, anything, all this literature up here, if you wanna, free Quran, there's the pamphlets dealing with Islam. We're getting ready to come into the month of Ramadan, I don't know if, so all of this stuff is free, and, love for you to have it or share it, if you like.
Thank you all so much. See you Monday and have reflection on Mr. Muhammad